All right, this video is going to be 5 things you need to know about an engine shop before you take your engine there. Now, this is coming from a guy that's been doing this quite a few years now, and I own the shop, and I am not a massive shop. I do not want to be a big shop. That is the reason I'm not a big shop. So take some of this as a grain of salt, do your own research, all that jazz. Okay, so number 1. Just because the shop is a massive shop with all kinds of equipment and all kinds of guys does not mean they're a better shop than a small shop. Because you take myself, for instance, I could have a shop 10 times the size. Well, maybe not 10 times. That'd be 40,000 square feet. Anyways, you're not going to be, you don't have to have a massive shop to have good guys, good equipment, and know what you're doing. Does it have to be new equipment? Absolutely not. As long as the equipment is in good shape and does the job, it doesn't really make any difference when it really comes down to it. Now, does new equipment make the job faster? Does it make the job easier? 100%. Now, that said, there is some processes with newer equipment. It is much easier to get what you're looking for. Like, so you talk about a hone job. You can get a better hone job. I shouldn't say a better. You can get a easier hone job for what you're looking for. I'll talk about it in another video. Our VK and our PK. So, but we get it on our machine all the time. I have a profilometer for checking, and we do check it. So, but the new equipment does make it easier. Okay, now that does not mean the job is going to be cheaper. Just because the job gets done faster does not mean it's going to be cheaper. Because you're looking at a piece of equipment, $150,000, and then a guy still has to run that piece of equipment. So just take that into consideration. You're looking at shops. The bigger shop does not mean it's a better shop. Fancier equipment does not mean it's a better shop than a shop like myself with older equipment that is still in perfect functioning order. All right, number 2, we are going to talk about the age of the shop. Now, I have been in business, the engine shop has been in business since 2018. Now, I've had a bunch of people come and go as far as people that worked for me, different degrees of specialty and experience and all that type of stuff. Now, right now, there's myself, and I have one full-time guy, and he's been doing it for 40 years. So he's been doing it a long time. And then I have a young guy that's helping us out. He's actually in a RAP program. For you guys who don't know what a RAP program is, it is basically your last semester of school. You can do an in-work or in business, I guess, job placement. I guess it'd be a job placement. That's what it'd be. Okay, and he's only here part-time. He's only here a few hours a day. We turn out quite a few engines. We do a lot of work. Now, that said, if you go into a bigger shop, you potentially should be doing a considerably larger amount of production. And you have to. If you get into a shop that's 3 times the size of this with a whole bunch of new equipment, you have people to pay, you have office staff to pay, you have equipment to pay for, all that stuff. And then obviously, you're in business to make money. So anybody that's in business is looking to make money. So they're going to be pushing stuff through, as fast as possible. Not saying that that's a bad thing, but if you have a shop that's older, you tend to have a process, as stuff comes in, it goes through a certain process, that type of stuff. And you tend not to be, I don't know if in a rush is the right word for it, but just something to think about. Just because a shop is new or old doesn't really matter. So just take that, take that in consideration. Maybe go in, talk to the people. Now, my shop I kind of run my shop a little bit different than a lot of people. A lot of people would have office staff, and you would be dealing with the office staff most of the time. As it stands right now, I am the office staff, plus I work in the back. So 90% of the time when you call, you would be talking to me. Now, I do have a couple of people that do help me here and there. If I'm really busy, they'll answer the phone for me. They're off-site people. So I can get some work done. And then sometimes we just don't answer the phone. So if you do phone an engine shop, especially if it's a small engine shop, and you don't get an answer, don't be discouraged. because that's likely means, like myself, I'm standing in front of a machine doing somebody's job while you're phoning, and I'm busy doing something. I can't answer the phone because that is something that is it's hard for, especially in the day and age that we're in now, is a lot of people think, oh, they should answer the phone every second. Well, if I answered the phone every time it rang, I'd never get anything done. I think I actually have been keeping track in the last few months, and I average about between 100 and 120 phone calls a day, one day. So in an 8-hour period, like if I answered the phone every time, I would never get anything done. So I answer the phone when I can. I recognize the number, that type of stuff. I have something there that's for the person. And if you drop something off, and that's something else. If you drop something off and the person says, hey, it's going to be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, calling a bunch of times is actually going to make it take longer, because I can guarantee you're not the only job they're doing. Right now, how many work orders do I have open? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 51, 52, 53, 54. All right, I have 54 open work orders right now. 54. Now, some of them are smaller jobs, some of them are bigger jobs. But nonetheless, I still have 54 open work orders right as it stands. So if every one of them people call me every day, I'm never getting anything done. So your stuff is literally going to sit here and never get done. So just take that into consideration. You're calling a small shop, leave a message, say, hey, give me a call back when you can. Perfect. All right, number 3. So if you're into, if you're in a small area or even a big area for that matter, something that I am told a lot of times by a lot of people is that they travel a long ways. I have people that come from quite a distance to come see me. Now, yes, I am in Canada, so the population is not as big here as it might be in certain parts in the States and all that jazz. But I have people that travel 6, 7, 8, 9 hours to get here for us, I shouldn't say me, for us to work on their engines. So, and yes, there shops closer? 100% there is. I specialize in Cummins, B-Series Cummins stuff. And I have, like I said, I have people that travel quite a long ways to get here for me to work on it. Now, most of the stuff that they're traveling like that with is B-Series Cummins stuff, because that is what I'm known for. And if you have to travel, let's say 5, 6 hours, to have somebody that specializes in that engine work on that engine, I 100% recommend for you to drive, to ship it, or whatever. Because it's one of those things, that little stuff on engines that the general engine machine shop potentially might not know. I can't say they don't know it, but potentially they don't know. Now, sometimes that's a spec, or that's a different hone job, or it's a different surface finish, or a different size on something, oil clearances and that type of stuff, or even sometimes the parts that are being used. A lot of times it doesn't matter there again, it doesn't matter the engine. You could be talking small block Chevy, big block Chevy, LS, Cummins, big block Mopar, third gen Hemis, anything like that. And then all of the other different engines, Hondas and all that stuff. If you have somebody that's, within a reasonable amount of time to rebuild the engine for you, I personally would recommend to send it to somebody that specializes in it, if you can. I realize not always. I have lots of people that bring stuff in that we do not specialize in. And what we do is I have a work order program, or an engine rebuilding program, and it gives us all of the specs, valve seat angle, guide clearance, piston to wall clearance, oil clearance. But I'm setting that stuff, unless you otherwise tell me different, we are going to set that stuff to a factory specification. So take that into consideration when you're calling a shop, dealing with a shop. Certain things are going to be different from shop to shop if that's what they specialize in. So hopefully that helps. All right, number 4 is going to be something you need to ask before you bring your stuff in. So I have a lot of people that bring in just, an engine block, just a cylinder head or something like that. What you want to ask is, how do you want me to bring it? I will have lots of people that bring stuff like they say, oh, I want you to bore and hone my block, but they bring me a short block. Well, now I have to tear the engine apart to get to the block. And that's fine. I have no problem doing that. The issue is that it incurs a bunch of cost, because you have the cost of tearing the engine apart, and then I have to wash everything, right? And then we have to do our process. But now I have to keep track of the parts, right? So, and a lot of people are like, oh, well, it's not that big a deal to keep track of parts. Well, if you're still watching the video, I have 54 open work orders. My shop is not that big. So you have 54 open work orders. That means I could potentially have 54 extra boxes, containers, whatever it may be, of parts that I have to keep track of at a minimum. Because not all, like you can't always get everything in a box. So now you have, pistons and rods and brackets and bolts and a crankshaft to deal with and harmonic balancer, sometimes a flywheel to keep track of. And I have to charge for that because it takes time out of my day to keep track and be able to deal with that stuff. So when you're bringing something, like if you're bringing a cylinder head just to have a wash, pressure test, and surface done on it, maybe you have to ask, and I always try to remember to tell people, hey, make sure you take brackets and make sure you take the cam, if it's an overhead cam engine, take the camshafts out if you can, brackets off, studs out that protrude. If the valves have to come out, if you're comfortable taking the valves out, then take the valves out, because sometimes on some heads you have to take the valves out to surface it. But that is something that I run into all the time when we get into a job, somebody drops something off, and they're like, oh, well, you charge me to take this apart. And it's just like, well, yeah, I have to take it apart to do the job. And they're like, oh, well, I could have done that. And it's just like, okay, well, that's just something to know. If you're doing it, ask. And if there's brackets, nuts, bolts, any of that type of stuff, remove that stuff. Keep it categorized for yourself. Keep it on your bench, whatever. All right, number 5. Now, if you're getting into specialty engine stuff or performance stuff, that is another question that you're going to want to ask your shop that's dealing with it, if you so feel inclined to do so, with certain processes. So when you're doing, you need to tell the shop exactly what you're doing with the truck so they can do the best job that they can for you. And the reason I say this is that I've had this conversation with certain people over the years, and you have to know what you're doing with the engine. So let's take a 6.7 Cummins. I'm a Cummins guy. So let's say a 6.7 Cummins, and you are going to put it in your truck, 500 horsepower. Okay, that is basically a stock engine. For the most part, there's a few little things that you're going to change, but nothing major. Now, will that engine make 800-900 horsepower? Yes, 100% it will. You tune it properly, put a good set of injectors and turbo on it, it'll make that, no problem. Now, do you want it to make that for a long period of time? It's a different story. So getting into it, from the 500 horsepower to 1,000 horsepower engine, there's actually quite a few things that change. So you're going to be changing in the performance. We'll talk the performance one versus the factory one. Your factory one is going to have factory style rods, factory style bearings, factory style springs, factory style valves. You're not changing into big valve seats. You're not changing the hone job. You're not balancing it. Cummins are actually pretty good at balanced anyway. But I do actually like to balance completely stock ones. It's not always in the budget for people to do it. But you get into a performance one, you're doing a performance bearing. You're doing a more aggressive hone job. Lots of times you're coating pistons. You're using better valve springs. You're using different seat angles. You're doing different valve jobs, bigger seats in the cylinder head. So that is one of those things that you kind of need to be able to either know, and if you don't know, be able to talk to the machine shop in how to set stuff up so that it's going to do the job you want. It's just that when you get into that race application one, that you want to make 1,000 horsepower with quite commonly, let's say, that engine with a really aggressive hone job will use a little bit of oil, just inherently the way it is. Where the stock one, you're going to use, basically almost no oil, right? You're going to use a little bit, like with the way that we hone stuff now, and with all that type of stuff, they tend to use a little tiny bit of oil. Just is what it is. That's what I have found. And also some of that depends on the oil that you're using. Some of that also changes the game a little bit too. And also how hard you're running the truck, how hot the truck runs. We won't get into that whole schmozzle anyway. But that is something you need to be able to talk to the machine shop and be able to relay to them what you want and be able to understand what's going on. No, that's maybe not right. You need to be able to relay to the machine shop exactly what you want to do. And that's part of the reason I said, hey, you really should have a machine shop that specializes in it. Because if you don't, they're going to go, oh, well, we just, that's just a normal engine. You don't have to do anything to it. Because that's not so much the case, especially with technologies changing. In the last 10 or 15 years, a lot of stuff has changed. The ring packs that we use have changed. The cylinder finishes have changed. The head gaskets have changed. There's a lot of stuff. We do use different materials and valves and seats and all that stuff. So, guys that specialize in it are going to keep up on their specialty. Just is what it is. So hopefully this has helped you guys out. If you want more of videos like this, let me know, and catch you on the next one. All right, for you guys that are still here, I'm going to give you a bonus tip. When you're having an engine just machined and you're bringing it home and you're assembling it yourself, something that you want to either ask or do, I personally should just be doing it, is you need to do a final wash. Now, when we final wash stuff before assembly, or after machining process, I guess. So after the machining process, we put it into our wash tank and we wash it, rinse it. Okay. Now, before we assemble the engine, like our final assembly, we take the block back over and we go through and wash the block and rinse it all out once again with detergent, basically hot water and detergent. And then it gets soaked down. We blow dry it, soak down with WD-40. Everything's wiped down that we need to wipe down. And then that is when we assemble it. Now, a lot of people tend to miss that step. And the reason for doing this is if you just pick up a block from us or a head, the head not so much because it's usually assembled. But the block, the crankshaft, rods, pistons, any of that type of stuff, you should be cleaning all that stuff before you assemble it. Now, the reason for the block side of things is, one, the fluid that we spray on the block is a mixture of 2 or 3 different things that we mix together, and it keeps it from rusting. The issue is that it also keeps rings from setting. So, or so I find. It's a synthetic fluid, and it's designed to not let stuff rust, is basically what it is. Now, does it last forever? Absolutely not. But you need to be getting that material out of, off your head gasket surface, out of your cylinder bores, out of your oil galleries, all that type of stuff. You want to be rinsing and cleaning that stuff all real well. So I just thought I would mention that to you guys, is you need to be cleaning. That's actually something I should do a video on. Yeah. All right. Check you on the next one.